Hi there, my name's Andy Young and I'm one of the automotive lecturers down at Unitec in Auckland, New Zealand. And as some of you already know, I get asked to do all sorts of weird stuff other than just fixing cars and motorcycles and that kind of thing. And I do a bit of welding work, a bit of fabrication, and a friend of mine has asked me to perform a bobtail on his Honda Cruiser motorcycle, 650 I think it is, V-twin. So that involves cutting off pretty much the whole of the rear frame of the bike. And there you go. So I spent most of Sunday stripping this bike down and working out where the best place was to actually perform the cut. Now, I didn't film it because this is a job that I've never done before, and also up until this point I'm pretty sure you know how to strip down a motorcycle. It's not too hard. Putting it back together, on the other hand, much more difficult. And working out where to cut the frame was pretty important. We had to make sure that we didn't affect the structure of the frame. You know, where the swing arm mounts, we didn't want the bike to handle badly, and plus this machine's got to go through certification here in New Zealand once the work's been finished. It's got to be checked by an authorised engineer. He's got to check all the welds, check the structure, make sure it's still safe to use on the road. So we've got to the point now where I've cut off the rear end, and now I need to blank off these sections. And then, in addition to that, I need to make a seat mount. Now I'll show you the seat. Here we go. And part of the brief is that we need to mount the seat somewhere around that position, I reckon. The frame is pretty much at the angle it will be when it's on the ground with the wheels in and everything. The lower rail of the frame is pretty much horizontal, so we can use that as a datum. And he wants the back end of the bike to be as nothingness as possible, really, as clean as possible. So I think probably the best idea for that is we're going to run a piece of box section welded from underneath the frame here, coming back with a bit of a kick on it and a couple of mounts. But we'll come to all that bit later on. But that's basically the way that he wants the bike to look, as clean and as empty, with the seat sort of floating in space. And of course, don't forget the rear wheel is about here. The reason why I'm filming this is there's lots and lots of these modifications being done to the old sort of 70s, 80s, early 90s cruisers, where they've been bobtailed. And as a warrant inspector, I see lots of these bikes coming through the workshop needing a waff. And some of the modifications are terrible. They are really, really bad. Basically what some people do is they'll keep the bike standard, get it up to scratch, get it through a warrant of fitness, and then do the modifications, run it for the 6 months that they've got a waff, maybe 5 months, and then sell it on at quite a large profit. But when the new owner comes to get a warrant of fitness, the bike hasn't been certified. Some of the modifications really are nowhere near the kind of quality that they need to be at. For example, one bike was converted into a hardtail. That means removing the rear shock and making the swing arm a rigid part of the frame. And what he'd done to replace the shock was to put a piece of wood. He put a piece of wood, okay, he sprayed it silver so it looked like metal from a distance, but he put a piece of wood in replacement to the shock itself, and expected the bike to get a warrant of fitness like that. It's just not going to happen. So if you're thinking of doing this kind of mod for yourself, and these bikes do look really cool if they're done properly, and they still handle well and all that kind of stuff, then do your research, plan your attack, see what the best way is to do it, and what's required to allow the vehicle back on the road in your particular country. Now, I mean, in the UK, I don't think we've got any problems with this. We just do it and the bike still stays on the road. Here in New Zealand, any kind of modifications to brake systems, drivetrains, steering, chassis, you name it, it has to be recertified. They're really, really tight over here. I think in America, again, you can just pretty much, based on what I see on Roadkill, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Hello, Roadkill. So yeah, the next stage now then is for me to clean up these areas and then make up some blanking plugs that are going to basically finish off the frame. This is how I wanted it to be, and obviously we've got 4 points to do. Now it's important that we keep the strength of the frame as much as possible. So I'm not just going to use a thin piece of tin to cover these up. I've got some old offcuts of about 5mm plate, and I'm going to grind those such that they actually recess slightly into the frame, and then I'll put a bead weld around each of them. Once all of that's done, then we'll look at the seat side of things. So really the first stage of the job, put some gloves on? Yeah, let's put some gloves on. The first stage of the job is to clean up or clean back the paint for about 10 mils from the where the cuts are. Now these cuts, they were made using a slip disc. Now a slip disc is really designed for cutting stainless steel, but you can get a really accurate, neat cut using one of these in your grinder. They're not any more expensive than a normal disc really, but they don't last quite as long. Now it is really important before you do any kind of welding work to make sure that everything is completely clear of paint. Otherwise you're not going to get a good weld. It really is as simple as that. And you can't always get in with the power tools. I mean, this frame, it is going to get shot blasted and stuff to remove all the paint later on. But, and I suppose in an ideal world we'd send it away, get it shot blasted, then do all the welding, and then send it away and get it plastic coated. But in reality, I need to get this done before it's sent away. So it just means a little bit of hand cleaning work. So we need to go back about 5 mils from the actual end of the steel where we're going to be welding. So down here doesn't really matter too much, but we've got a little bit in there that we need to clear off. So we really don't want any kind of contamination of the weld. This is going to be inspected by a pretty experienced welding guy. So it needs to look nice and neat and tidy and no little bubbles in it, or anything like that. Full penetration. So that's all the 4 areas that are going to be welding as regards these blanking plates, all cleaned up. Obviously we've still got a lot more cleaning up to do under here when I come to weld the box section up, but we'll do that later on. Give myself a break. So now it's really time to actually cut and fabricate these blanking plugs. And each one's going to, well, these two are going to be very similar, and these two are quite different. So we'll get a bit of steel and a scriber, I reckon that should work. So all I need to do now really is just lay that on there. There we go. And just score around it. Hopefully it's not going to move. I think we need to put a bit of a datum on there as well, so if we do that, That tells us whereabouts it should go. Okay, that sort of works. So just come around there like that. Cool. And we need really to, well, cut it out. Next job. Okay, so that's the first blanking plug now made, and that's going to sit just on here. I've just marked it again, like that, and we're going to buzz a weld around there, and we'll see how it comes out. Okay, so that's the first one, all welded into place. Bit of a clean up afterwards. So it's not too bad. The visible weld is a lot better than the one at the back. Okay, so that's all the blanking plugs made up, welded into place and cleaned up as well. Any splatter's been taken off, bit of a wire brush, bit of a polish. They look pretty good actually, really impressed with this. Obviously the frame's going to go away and it's going to get bee blasted and it's going to get powder coated. So by the time all of that's done, these are going to look, you know, you're not really going to notice them, to be honest. There's been anything different to standard, which is crazy. It's all about the detail. These welds came out pretty good. I would have preferred to use the TIG, but unfortunately Ben's TIG has run out of gas. Time to buy some more gas, Ben. So I had to use the MIG. Once I'd stolen Ben's welding helmet, I could really see what I was doing far better. His is a much better helmet than mine. Mine's about 25 years old, so yeah, it's done a lot of work. So what's next? Well, in the next video, I'm going to cover making the actual seat mount. Where's the seat mount? Let's have a look. Okay, now the seat mounts, I'm going to use some box section for that. That's going to come back from under here towards the back of the bike, and the seat's going to sit something like that. And of course the box section is going to have a bit of a kink on it, and then a plate up here to mount these two bolts. The front mount, I reckon we're going to use some kind of stud, so we can put the seat on, slide it forward, and then the two rear bolt holes should line up and secure the seat. Trying to get a bolt down here is going to be a real pain because there's a shock in there and all sorts. So, bit of a problem. I want to make it as easy as possible to take the seat off. It's really important with these kind of conversions that you have attention to detail and you don't affect the structure of the frame. We need to make it, you know, we don't want to lose any of the strength of this frame. And you may have seen in one of the welds that I did, I actually blew a small hole. I think it was one of these two, probably this one, just welding under here. And that's a clear indication that I've got the MIG set really high on the power output to make sure I'm getting full penetration on the tube. Blowing a hole in itself isn't a problem because you can just fill it back up again. But if you don't have enough penetration and your weld is just sat on top of the steel, that's a huge problem. Now sure, these are only blanking plugs, it's not a real problem there. But if you're welding other parts of the frame, then penetration is what it's all about. You need to get that weld to basically fuse the steel all the way through its entire depth. Okay, well, if you've got any questions or comments, then why not leave them down the bottom and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, then you'll get notifications as to when any new videos get uploaded. And there's usually 3 or 4 every week. And of course, the video covering the fabrication of the seat mount will definitely be uploaded within 24 hours of this one, because I'm going to do it this afternoon. Okay, well, my name's Andy Young and I'm one of the automotive lecturers down at Unitec in Auckland, New Zealand. And well, cheers, thanks for watching, over and out.